Sometime last year, my wife asked me to build this little platform for the bathroom, and I liked how it turned out. And I have all these scrap offcuts that are strange sizes, and I thought I would batch out a bunch of them and try to sell them. So I go full production mode and start ripping the tops to the right width. I'll be using Indiana black walnut, Indiana white oak, Indiana hard maple, and then some random other species, pine and poplar. And since I don't have a jointer, I use this jig to rip a clean edge on one end. That hard maple did not have a clean edge, so that was the only piece that I had to do that with. And then I set up a stop block to get consistent widths of all the pieces. Batch those out like this. And then I do the same thing for the leg pieces. Chop those up with a stop block and that massive sled that I built a couple years ago. I really need to upgrade that, but it works. So there's all the white oak, there's the poplar, there's the hard maple, the pine, and the black walnut. That day it was like 5 or so degrees Fahrenheit outside, but with that propane heater, my garage was a nice and toasty 62-ish. So on to joinery, I'm going to be using a single dowel for each of those legs, and I thought I'd do a test piece with the pine here, because, I mean, if I screw it up, it's pine. It's okay. So I clamp on my dowel jig, drill the holes for the legs, and then using a smaller stop block drill guide thing, smaller stop block drill guide thing, I drill the corresponding holes in the top, and then do a test fit to make sure that things look okay, and see if I need to tweak anything before proceeding. And I was pretty happy with that. Looks okay. So on to production mode, like I said. I mark all of the locations where I want to drill on all the pieces, and then using that center punch, I mark the hole and drill. That is some gorgeous white oak. The way this dowel jig works is on the side there's a hole with a line that shows where the center is, which I'll show you here in a second. And you line those two up, clamp the piece, and then drill through the top. And in theory, the hole should be aligned where the line says it is, aligned with the line. Yes. So I sanded everything with 120 grit and then 150 grit. Some of the pieces had some holes and knot holes and things that I filled with black CA glue and accelerator. Then I took all the pieces outside and water popped them. What this does is, as the wood dries, the grain raises a little bit and the wood feels kind of furry. So you sand that off, and then when you put the finish on, the wood will be smooth. At least that's how it should work, and it usually does. At this point, I decided to put my Maker brand on the underside of all the tops. So I make a bunch of smoke here in the garage, and then sand off the extra burn marks, and then now it was on to full assembly. So using some Tight Bond 2, some dowels, a trusty $3 hammer that I think I got at Menards years ago, and some patience, and a bunch of clamps. Can't forget the clamps. I assemble everything, clamp them, and let them dry for a day or so. Clean up any squeeze out. I'm pretty diligent here with the squeeze out because I don't want to have to deal with that later. It can be a pain to try to sand or correct that after everything dries. So I did these in batches of like 3-ish, mostly because those are all the clamps I have. For finish, I'm going to be using Osmo Poly X oil. It is a hard wax oil that you pretty much just wipe on and wipe off. On a couple of the pieces though, I wanted to test out this new stain. So on the pine and one of the poplars, I applied this stain, wiped it off, and I think it looks okay. I mean, it's not great, but it's like it gives it kind of a rustic vibe. So a couple days later, after the first coat of Osmo had dried, I lightly sanded the tops, wiped them down to remove any extra dust, and gave them another coat of Osmo. Same exact process as before, wipe it on, wipe it off. Osmo fully cures in like a week, but it's dry and pretty much ready to use in like a day. At least that's what I've found. So here they are all done. Here's an example use case in the bathroom with the different wood species, in like a hallway or living room, and finally the kitchen. This one here is my favorite, that curly looking walnut. And like I said, I'm trying to sell these, and I just made an Etsy store, so if you're interested, look me up on Etsy. So that's it. Thanks for watching.